Hey, it's Jang here from UltimateRC.com, and this is my review of the HPI WR8 Flux. This is the Block H.F.H.V edition, a replica of the car that was used in the Gymkhana 5 video, complete with the black left wheel. The very first thing I want to talk about here is size and scale. If you compare the actual size of this to the size of the full-scale version, it is literally 1/8 scale. It's very, very close. However, in RC terms, this is actually much smaller than what we normally call an 1/8 scale vehicle. In fact, it's only just a little bit larger than a 1/10 scale sedan. Shows you how small of a car the Ford Fiesta is. Moving beyond outward appearances, this vehicle is based on HPI's Bullet series of 1/10 scale off-road trucks. It's a shaft-driven layout with the motor on one side and the battery on the other, with an actual sealed center differential. The entire driveline is all metal, from the Mod 1 spur to the diff internals. Suspension is independent, of course, and it has plastic-bodied shocks with no threading. You have to use preload clips, but the out-of-the-box spring and dampening rates feel really good. The car even has sway bars pre-installed front and rear. Camber links are not adjustable, but front tow is. Another thing that's adjustable is the battery box. You can change its length, and it is designed to accommodate many different designs of modern LiPo batteries, as well as different sizes. Because everything is laid out pretty low on the chassis, the rear body posts had to be comically tall. The fronts are pretty short, but interestingly, they're actually on a raised base. The bumper mount is elevated to give you a better approach angle to obstacles. These wheels are the old 2.2-inch Super 10 or Super Nitro size, with 12mm hexes. The tire tread is clearly strictly for on-road use, but the rubber compound that they use is amazingly soft. Probably the stickiest tire that I've ever felt on an RTR. Other versions of the WR8 come with either a different tread pattern or gravel tires. To turn those tires, this car uses a 540-sized Castle Creations 4000 kV sensorless motor, the same one used in the Savage Flux XS. The ESC is a derivative of the Castle Creations Sidewinder, and this one has a built-in fan, and it's supposed to be fully waterproof. It's rated for up to 3S LiPo use. The radio set here is the 2.4 GHz TF40, and I really like this transmitter. It feels good in the hand, takes only 4 AA's, it has easily accessible reversing and trims, and it also has dual rate and endpoint adjustment. The package even comes with the 4 AA's you need for the radio, as well as some very basic tools. And they also give you spare shock preload clips, different shock pistons, some grub screws to use as down travel stops. Those go in the arms, and they are also known as droop screws. Plus they give you an optional 2-degree rear toe block that would loosen up the car's handling compared to the 3-degree stocker. On a 2S LiPo right out of the box, this car topped out at 33 miles per hour. It's not a tremendous top speed, but it does get there very quickly. I'm sure you could safely gear up for pure on-road use. As you can see, the car is very lively to drive around. This particular surface right here had a lot of dust on it, but those soft tires still managed to get quite a lot of good traction, and you had to really be on the throttle to get it to kick the rear end out. But again, this is on 2S. On a small 3S battery, speed bumped up to 48 miles per hour. Put in a bigger battery and it'll probably get up to an even 50 without changing gearing. HPI claims you can gear it up to 60 miles per hour, and given how close that target is, I'm inclined to believe them. After a full pack of running on 3S with the stock gearing, the motor was only up to 130 degrees. It's got plenty of room to grow. Naturally on 3S it becomes a lot easier to kick the rear end out and a lot easier to drift. But still, the car is not set up at all to drift. It's set up for maximum grip. Because of that, for a car that's running at the upper limit of its voltage range, the WR8 still felt very controllable. I was putting in a concerted effort here to drive it crazy intentionally. With a modicum of throttle control, this could get around a track just fine. Speaking of which, here we are back on 2S on a track. This is still running the box stock setup with one exception. I lowered the body in the front by 1 peg, just so that it would look right. I'm pretty sure they raked it back in stock form to keep it from scraping the very low spoiler under braking. The suspension is really soft, so it tends to dive quite a lot under braking. It also squats under hard acceleration, and as you can see in the turns, it leans over a lot. On a sticky, prepped surface like this, it is possible to carry so much speed through a turn that you'll actually flip over and traction roll. If you're only going to drive on-road, you'll probably want to stiffen up the suspension, sway bars, and most importantly, lower the ride height. Even though this is a replica of a tarmac or on-road tuned car, they gave you enough suspension travel for a little bit of jumping and maybe even some off-road rallying. Like this. This absolutely blew my mind though. See those wheels and tires? They're still those same on-road specific ones. And this is some dry, loose, soft dirt. Those tires have such a soft compound and just enough tread that they handle this stuff like a champ. If you didn't know what the actual tread pattern was on these tires and you just drove the car, you would assume that they had a moderately aggressive gravel tread. Beyond even just the traction of the tires though, the suspension is soaking up some really big rocks here. Stuff that's not at all to scale. You have to consider that at this scale, if you were doing a real WRC rally event, the type of rock that would completely tear apart the suspension on the car would be about a half an inch, maybe a little bit less in diameter. This right here is really all I can ask an RC rally car to do, and the WR8 does it well. But then there's this, an off-road track with full-on off-road jumps. Again, no changes, same setup I was running on the parking lot and the on-road track. Here the ride height really should be raised up a little bit more to deal with these ridiculously unscaled jumps. Also, that super low on-road spoiler tends to get caught on the ground and scrape quite a lot, both going up and coming down from jumps. The good news is twofold. You can raise your ride height without completely eliminating your down travel, and it's really easy to trim back the bottom of the body a little bit. Again though, for an out-of-the-box setup, I was really impressed by how this thing was handling. And here we go with yet another driving surface, again still with the stock setup and the stock on-road tires. This is damp indoor clay. Here the WR8 is being driven by a local racer, and the other buggies that you see that it's dicing it up with are racers also, not bashers. It's an unfair comparison in several ways, 4-wheel drive versus 2-wheel drive, different motor specs, but it's still great to see just what this thing can do. Now when I bought this version of the WR8, I realized right up front that it was going to have the on-road specific tires, so I also back-ordered some then not yet available wheels and tires from the original Nitro WR8. And here they are. These are actually gravel spec tires with a lot more aggressive tread. They also have a much taller sidewall, though the overall diameter of the tires is the same. Instead, they actually use smaller wheels. On this dusty surface, it was pretty obvious that these tires gave a lot more forward traction, no surprise compared to the on-road tires, but there wasn't that much difference in side bite. Meanwhile, driving with the rally tires on-road gave similar forward bite, but noticeably less side bite. These have a lot more lateral slip in turns, which actually makes them more fun to drive in my opinion, because they drift much more easily, even on 2S LiPo. Tire wear has also been not too bad in general with this car. YouTubers commenting on my raw driving videos have insisted that the tires are completely shot, both sets. But they're not. I've done most of my driving on these stock tires and they barely have any wear on the main section of tread, just a bunch on the corners. The gravel tires did take a bit of a beating driving on-road with a lot of drifting and also driving on the hard outdoor off-road track. But considering what they've been through, the wear does not match the abuse. Ooh, good segue. I mentioned abuse? Okay, maybe not as abusive as my normal durability montages for pure off-road vehicles, but face it, this is an on-road designed vehicle with the ability to do some off-roading. Fundamentally, it's a street car. It was never meant to be jumped like a buggy or a monster truck. Also, it has a full fendered body and a big foam bumper up front. Combine that with the small tires and short arms and it's just difficult to break this thing. Most of the damage you're going to do is going to be to the body. Nothing's gone wrong on mine yet. I was most worried about the drivetrain given the poor reports of durability of this drivetrain by previous owners of the Bullet series of trucks. But in addition to my 3S bashing on the parking lot, plenty of driving through dust, dirt, sand, and various grades of chopped up dry bitumen, I put the car through more than its share of full throttle landings off of jumps. Simple fact is, the tires on this thing are much smaller than on the trucks. As a result, the drivetrain is not subject to nearly as much strain as it is on the truck versions, and so far it seems to be holding up just fine. Summing things up, in my opinion, this car is freaking awesome. Completely A+ material. It does everything I would ask a scale rally car to do and then some. It's the best factory-produced RC rally car I've seen since the HPI RS4 rally. When it comes to this type of vehicle, these guys get it. They've proven a couple of things that I've been saying all along. It is possible to deliver an RTR RC with usable tires that do not need to be thrown away as soon as you try to put them on any real-world surface. It is possible to deliver an RTR RC with a good suspension tune out of the box, even without using big bore anodized aluminum piggyback over crazy reservoir take all your money insano shocks. The car is absolutely great right out of the box, and I could not reasonably ask for anything more. Good job, HPI. So that's it from me. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that this was entertaining and informative for you. But if you didn't like the video, please be sure to hit thumbs down on it on YouTube, or if you did like it, hit thumbs up. Either way, I appreciate the feedback, and I'll catch you later.